requests. There
Okay,
we are.
great. Thank
We
you
are
so much,
recording. So
Farhan. So if I may just ask you to also let me share the screen, and if I can just request everyone to just turn off their videos and their mics, otherwise you won't be able to see the presentation as well. And just bear with me as I get it going here. So thank you guys for making the time to be here. I know that it is a very challenging time this weekend. For many people are busy, and I think there have been certain organizations, you know, for walks and walks of hope and walks of faith and all kinds of things for the family. So I do appreciate that you guys made the time. Just let me know if you cannot see the slide. Otherwise, I'm going to assume you can see it.
we can see it.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you, Farhan. So I've just taken my video off so that it's easier, you know, for you guys to see this. And I'm going to be testing everybody in a little while to see if they're still awake and if they're still following. So we'll take a little break in between. The topic that, you know, I decided to discuss today is about aging, and aging in a healthy and in a graceful way, because too often I think we are, you know, obviously as we are going through life at certain stages of life, we may not be thinking about what our lives are going to look like or how our bodies are going to be 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now. And whatever we do today, it's actually going to impact how youthful we remain and our vitality for, you know, our golden years, if I can put it like that. So chasing the fountain of youth, this is something that people have been doing for eons, from the time of Cleopatra, and, you know, for many, many, many centuries, everybody's looking for that magic pill. This is actually a myth about a fountain that was thought to have these magical powers if you bathed in it or drank from it, to regain vitality and youthfulness and basically not to age. So we're going to talk about different aspects of aging today. And just for those of you who may not know, I'm a naturopathic doctor. I am Canadian trained, practiced there for 10 years, and then moved to South Africa where I got married and have a practice there. And I also practice in Dubai. So I am in practice now for 17 years, and I use only natural therapies and natural medicines to treat whatever the condition is, because I'm not treating the condition, I'm treating the person who has the condition, and I'm always looking to treat the root cause as much as possible. Why is it that this person has diabetes or has arthritis or has migraines or what have you? So let's talk about, first of all, this concept of aging. What is aging exactly, right? We keep hearing these terms, anti-aging, and I don't like the term anti-aging actually, because I feel it has a bit of a negative connotation, in that, you know, it's almost like aging is a bad thing. Aging is something we should completely avoid. Aging is something that has, you know, a lot of negative um, aspects or connotations to it, and we are going to discuss that, what it means to you personally. But I think that we can also look at aging in a way that's healthy. So as we've discussed before we started the talk, you know, it's mind over matter in many cases, and age can be just a number in many cases. I know for myself, and I'm not saying this to sound, you know, conceited or anything, but I know that when someone asks me how old I am, I actually have to think. I actually have to stop and think how old I am, because I don't feel my age. Alhamdulillah, I don't feel the age that I am. And I'd like to keep it that way. So it is a progressive decline in the body's ability to defend, maintain, and repair itself. This is one of the you know, sort of definitions of what aging is. The World Health Organization says that at the biological level, aging results from the impact of the accumulation of a wide variety of molecular and cellular damage over time. So our body is made up of cells, trillions and trillions and trillions of cells, and these different cells come together to make tissues and make organs. So the damage is happening on a very, very molecular cellular level, and it accumulates over time. So we have some 70-year-olds who enjoy extremely good health and functioning. But then we have other 70-year-olds who are quite frail and require significant help from others. So, what is it that we want to see ourselves as we're getting older? I'm just going to talk about some conditions of aging here. We're just going to throw some of the most common conditions out there of what happens, the consequence when the body can no longer keep up with repairing itself, with healing itself, and with maintaining a certain amount of cellular energy. So some of you will be able to, obviously relate to some of these. The younger people in the audience, hopefully you're not here yet. And if you are not there yet, we want to prevent you from getting there. And I'm sure you can think about your parents or other people who may have this. Cataracts, eye problems, problems with vision, macular degeneration starts to become a big problem when people turn 50 and 60 and so on. Of course, hearing issues. So, the older you get, there are difficulties with hearing. Blood pressure starts to rise, and we have a lot of people taking blood pressure medications. And then, of course, cardiovascular health issues with an increased risk for heart attacks, for anything to do with heart problems, whether it's hardening of the arteries, atherosclerosis, where people have had to have not just one, but more than one surgery, where it's bypass surgeries, double, triple, quadruple. Of course, breathing issues, COPD is very common, asthma and so on can also creep up in older age, but just generally not having that lung capacity. And now with COVID, we are seeing this obviously hitting the older population even more, right? Because they don't have the ability to keep up with the repair mechanisms. And as I spoke in my COVID talk, I spoke a lot about how this is an issue when we're talking about the lungs, because the virus is attacking the respiratory system. And many elderly people are not able to recover from this. And then, of course, diabetes creeps up a lot with people in their mid 40s onwards. And I'm going to talk a little bit later about genetics and how genes play a role. So if you've got a family history of some of these things, today I can actually do a test to look at your DNA and tell you which conditions you are most likely to end up suffering from later in life. And if you have that information, then you can actually do something about it now to change that trajectory. It's very powerful. Of course, fatigue, people start to feel very lethargic. They just don't have the energy to do things. This leads to also sleep problems, hormonal imbalances, definitely for men and women. So we not only have issues with menopause for women, but we have andropause for men. And this is where they start to lose their vitality. Remember that hormones communicate to all over the body, different organs. It's not just sexual or reproductive health. We have receptors for our hormones in our brain, in our hearts, in our skin, bones. And so this is why we see problems with osteoporosis, heart problems also increasing when women and men are going through andropause and menopause because of that hormonal shift. Depression is a big one. So again, with the pandemic, we've seen this quite a bit, where the elderly population who had to be isolated, and many elderly people are still going through this, where they're not able to come together with their families. There are so many travel restrictions in place, and this is creating a lot of that isolation that leads to anxiety and depression. Of course, aches and pains. This is a big one. I think a lot of us can relate to this on some level. So if you're starting to get aches and pains more and more and more, and relying on painkillers more and more, it's something you need to address. And then, as I said, social isolation, and just mental health issues can also become quite bad in old age. But when I say old age, I'm talking about things that are starting in our 40s, really, right? We have issues with the brain health. So not only in terms of stroke. What is a stroke? A stroke is basically not enough blood flow or oxygen reaching the brain. there's an increased risk for that. Weight gain is a big one for both men and women because our metabolism slows down significantly when we age, and we lose a lot of muscle mass when we age. But there are ways to counter that, which I'm going to talk about. Arthritis is a big one. So whether it's rheumatoid or osteoarthritis that affects the hands or the knees or the back, this is a huge one that starts to impact people even in their 30s. And then we have the osteoporosis, which I mentioned, which is basically low bone density. So it is really important that if you're in your 50s and 60s, at some point you have got to go and get checked. Your bone density has to be checked with what's called a DEXA scan. It's a specific kind of scan to see how many holes are there inside your bones. And that means that it's quite, the bone density is quite low. And so you are at risk for fractures and for falls. Of course, skin is a big sign of aging, right? Wrinkles, dark circles, puffiness, bags under the eyes, even the hair, the graying of the hair and so on, and just losing luster, like the skin just doesn't have the same luster or, that suppleness to it, neither does the hair. A lot of people are suffering from and dying from cancer. This is another big one that happens as the body is unable to continue to repair itself. And so when cells mutate and cancer kicks in and takes over, it's very, very devastating. And then we have a lot of cognitive problems as we get older. So people might be able to relate to the fact that, as they're into their 40s, 50s, 60s, they walk into a room and they can't remember why they went in there. Or they can see a person's face, they know the person, but they can't remember their name. Or they remember things from a long time ago, but they can't remember like what they ate for lunch yesterday, that sort of thing. So cognitive deficits, and we all know about dementia, Alzheimer's, which are just rising. These conditions are just rising and rising. So these are just some of the things that we're dealing with when we talk about aging. And I just want to talk a little bit about the theories, right? So what are some of the scientific or science-backed explanations of aging? There are a few. I'm just going to talk about three. The first one is something called oxidative stress. So what does that mean? It's exactly what it looks like, the photo that I have there, the image. If you cut an apple in half or a potato in half and you leave it on the countertop, what happens? It turns brown, in a matter of minutes. This is because oxygen in the air causes oxidation. It's a rusting effect. The same thing is happening inside our cells. All of us right now are rusting inside, okay? It's happening all the time. And it's just a byproduct of breathing in oxygen. So for any of you out there who are chemistry majors, you'll remember even from high school science that the oxygen molecule is O2, 02, it's two molecules. So sometimes what happens is as we're breathing oxygen, we end up creating what's called a free radical, which means that the oxygen loses one of its partners and it becomes unstable. And when it's unstable, it causes a lot of damage to our DNA and to our cells and to our tissues until it becomes stable again. And this is where the idea of antioxidants comes in. You may have heard of the word antioxidants. And these are things that are going to counteract this rusting process. Another theory of aging is something called mitochondrial dysfunction. So just bear with me. I know these are words we probably haven't seen or heard before. Mitochondria are really, really, really important organelles. They're inside every single cell. We have a number of mitochondria inside every cell. There's a picture there to show you what it looks like. And this is the powerhouse of the cell. This is basically the factory that makes the energy for the cell to be able to function, for the cell to be able to breathe. It's called cellular respiration. Now, unfortunately, mitochondria are also very susceptible to damage from environmental toxins, from things we breathe in, things we eat, all kinds of things like this. And so if we don't have the mitochondria functioning at their capacity, then the cell cannot function at its capacity. And the third theory is basically DNA damage. So if you look at this last picture I have here, you will note, if you can see my mouse, that inside the cell, we have the nucleus. This is the round circle, that's the center of the cell that contains all of our genetic information. Each genetic information is in this DNA right here. You can see this thing that looks like an X. So we have tons of these, and this is what basically then divides, and it tells the body, this is going to be a piece of the liver, this is going to be the eyeball, this is going to be the heart, this is going to be hair, this is going to be the reproductive organs. Every single chromosome, at the tip of the chromosomes, you see these red little caps. It almost looks like shoelaces. If you've ever seen shoelaces with the caps at the end of the shoelaces, they're called telomeres. And this is really important because telomeres, this on the right-hand side here, they shorten every time that chromosome divides. So every time we go through a cycle where the cells divide, the telomere gets shorter and shorter and shorter. You can see here the red bit becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. That cap, reduces in size significantly to the point where there's no more red cap. When there's no more red cap, that basically means cell death. That means that there's no more capacity to divide. And so that particular organism or living being has reached its capacity, and now death is basically the next thing. Okay, so these are the three theories. And the reason I wanted to bring those to our attention is so that we can appreciate the different ways in which we're aging, and that way we can also use different avenues to target oxidative stress, to target mitochondrial health, and to improve or help our DNA from getting damaged faster and from those telomeres from shortening. We want those caps at the ends of the shoelaces to stay as long as possible. Now, to be quite honest, we all think we have one age, which is basically from the time you were born, and we mark it by our birthdays, correct? Every year we turn a year older or what have you. But in reality, we actually have two different ages. So if you look at this image I have on the top left, I'm sure many of us know people who are 40 years old, but they look like they're 60. Or we know people who are 60, but they actually look and perform like they're in their 40s. I'm sure you would all agree with that. So I would just take a moment to ask you guys, each of you, to think, what is your actual chronological age? Chronological age means the age from the time you were born, the number of years that have passed since our birth, okay? And then your actual biological age means your cellular age, how old your cells really are, how old your organs, your tissues, your arteries really are. Do you feel like your biological age is greater than your chronological age, or do you feel like your chronological age is greater than your biological age? And there are now tests. There are certain tests that we can do to actually look at your biological age. So if you are 35 years old and you wanted to see what your biological age is, you can find out if your cells are functioning at the level of a 35-year-old or a 40-year-old or a 30-year-old. Okay, so obviously we want to maintain a younger biological age. It can be reversed by attending to your health, and it is the most important component to the aging process, whereas your chronological age, you can't really change. You are the age you are from the number of years that have passed since you were born, but the way you feel and the age that you're performing at could be quite different. So remember that aging takes place on an internal cellular level, right? It is happening from the inside, from the most minute structure is where the aging is happening. And all too often, when we talk about aging gracefully or aging in a healthy way, too much, even when I was doing, research to put together this presentation, because whenever I do a presentation for KCA, it's a brand new presentation. I am not recycling presentations. I'm putting together presentations for my community based on what I think is relevant for this community. And as I was going through the research, all the stuff related to aging was focused on surface. your skin, your face, your hair. Nobody's talking about what's going on internally. And it's important to realize from a naturopathic perspective, whatever's going on internally is then going to be reflected outwardly. If your internal cells, your digestive cells, your heart cells, your liver cells, your bone cells are old, of course the outside is going to look old. So we cannot focus on creams and lotions and potions and hair dyes. That is not what's going to help a person age gracefully. And I'd really love to know your opinion on it. So we're going to talk more about turning back the clock. And at this point, I just want to stop sharing my screen, okay? And I'm going to ask you guys 2 questions. So if everybody can come back to us and you can unmute yourselves and put on your videos if you like, because I want to engage the audience. So of course, I would really like people to participate. So the first question I want to ask is it important to you to age in a healthy way? And if it is, why? Why is it important to age in a healthy way? Why is healthy aging important? That's the first question. So if we can have, I'm sure if everybody wanted to say something, we could.
So whoever wants to ask here, raise your hand and go. So somebody had already started, so go ahead.
I think it was Adnan. Who was it that was going to say something? Oh, Hazra. Okay.
Go ahead.
Alaikum salam.
I think it's more important to look after your health at the moment. It's in the future too, as we are aging, obviously us in our 62 and 63 ages, it's more important that what we eat, what we do, how our active lifestyle is, it's more important. It'll help us in the days to come too, right? The main thing is to think positive and how we have our lifestyle in the whole, it's a whole, everything is based on how we're going to be in the future as we age after and getting older too, right? Have a dhyan rakhna, so it'll help us in the future too, right?
But exactly. What is it that you want to see in your old age, right? That you are visualizing?
Health, obviously, that's the main thing, right?
What is health?
Health is keeping yourself fit, eating the right foods, and that is the main thing, right? That's the whole point.
Sure, perfect. Thank you for that response. Anybody else would like to share? Why is healthy aging important? I'm trying to get at what it is that you know you would like to be doing in your older age. When you think about yourself, that you want to feel or to be able to do.
I think you want to not be like a burden to people around you, family and stuff. So I think there's 2 pieces, right? There's the mental side. You don't want to lose your mental focus. Like you said, people forget things from last week. If they ate yesterday, you don't want that happening to you. And then there's the physical side, right? You go up the stairs and you're tired, your back hurts. You're thinking 15 years ago, I was on a treadmill for half an hour. You don't want that happening, right? So if you want to prevent those 2 and like you said, age gracefully into your 50s, 60s, 70s, whatever it may be.
And I think, on that note, Adnan, because you bring up a good point, and you're a parent, right? So why is it important? If your parents or grandparents, why is it important to age in a healthy way?
Like I mentioned, you don't want to be a burden on people around you, and like it takes a toll. Like I've seen friends whose parents were diagnosed with terminal illnesses. It takes a toll on the family, like everyone around you, and it takes a toll on yourself as well, right?
For sure. And so ideally, you want to be able to do things. You want to be able to run around with your kids without feeling winded. You want to be able to go to their important events, sports events, after school stuff, enjoy holidays. And then for grandparents, it's a big one, right? Because all grandkids want their grandparents to piggyback them. So you want to be able to get on the ground and get up off the ground, right? And do things and feel energetic, but also be there mentally.
Yeah. I think even, everyone has different retirement plans, but you want to travel and go see the world and see other places instead of being in and out of care. right?
Exactly. Yeah, those are all amazing points. And I'd really love for more people to tell us what it is that they feel they would like to be doing in the future and why it's important, you know, for them to do those things. Because then we work backwards and we figure out, well, how do we make sure that we can, you know, continue to get older or younger, if you want to put it that way, and still do the things we want to do. Anwar uncle?
I think the most important thing is to keep active, keep your mind active, and physically you have to be active. Now, in the case of a 50-year-old, it can be more aggressive, but as if you're talking to a 60, 70-year-old, just walk, simply walk for a mile every day, stretch yourself a bit. You don't have to exert yourself.
Correct.
And keep your mind away from tension and anxieties. I mean, maru chewatan kachi me bepeto baniwe. Do you understand? Bepeto
Uh-huh.
means
Just carefree. Yeah.
carefree. I mean, like relax that way. Doesn't
That's so
mean
hard
that
to do though, right? Anwar uncle, it's so hard to do, especially now with the pandemic and lockdowns and travel restrictions. And I think just the world we're living in, this unfortunate incident with the London attack, it is so hard to be carefree.
Yeah. No, but you can try within the limits. I mean, I'm not saying that in this case, particular case, the London case, it's a different case, but normally, under normal circumstances, be active. I mean,
Yeah.
active in the sense that whatever your age, maintain that activeness. You don't have to exert yourself like lifting weights of
Right.
beyond
Absolutely.
your limit. I mean,
Yeah, and you're right. You know, it's simple things. And I'm going to talk about that later as well. Some simple things that we should be doing just to stay active. You're 100%. The body is a machine.
yeah.
It is meant to be able to move. It's got moving parts. We need to move it because if we're not moving, there's no blood flow, there's no oxygen flow, there's no lymphatic flow, there's no detoxification, even digestion is going to stop. And as you said, it's not just physical activity, it's mental and emotional activity that's really important. So I remember I was watching something where someone said that especially for 60 and 70-year-olds, so this is a prescription for the two of you, the best thing to do to keep your mind active is to take dance lessons.
Yes.
Because you have to coordinate your body with your mind, and you're doing it in a fun way, hopefully. So really, you know, I mean, anyone who knows me knows my family we're huge music lovers, and we love to enjoy music and dance. And this is actually really good for your health. But especially as you get older, they're saying we must do it more because it is that coordination of the brain, right brain, left brain, with your body parts that you have to coordinate.
Justin Drake dancing is good.
Yeah. Thanks for your input. Yes, Mariam, please.
Okay, they say you are what you eat. And there are so many no, you can't eat this, you can't eat that. Like say, there's so much negativity about food. What do you say to that?
Yeah, great question. Luckily today I'm going to talk to you about food, and I have nothing in there that says don't do this and don't do that. I only have do this. So I will get to that later. But you're absolutely right. And it's just, unfortunately, it is true. You are what you eat. But I would take it a step further and say it's not just what you eat. You are what you absorb. You are what you are taking into your cells. So this is good things, nutrients, but it's also toxins. If we're eating too much sugar, too many processed foods, too many foods that are fast foods that are full of chemicals and things that were made in a lab and don't grow in nature. You guys have been at my previous talks, and you know, the last time I even asked the question, what's the difference between a banana and a banana muffin, right? And if we're doing too much of that, then we are absorbing those toxins, and those toxins are going to interfere with the way our bodies and our cells work. So a little bit later, there is a slide about, you know, what I call superfoods that I really feel people should be incorporating into their diets. And then if you still have a question, you know, you can ask me specifically, but thank you for that. Okay, my mom wants to say something. Mom, I'll let you speak in a sec, but just let me ask the second question also. You can maybe speak to that. So again, I don't want us to have this presentation and to feel like everything is about, the negative aspects. It's not. What for you are the most rewarding things about growing older or aging? Okay, what is something positive? What is a rewarding thing or something that you feel is an advantage of getting older? Is there anything? Mom, do you want to say what you were going to say before? You have to unmute yourself.
We can't hear her.
Still can't hear. Your mic is off. Okay, now.
Yeah, I said I enjoy my grandchildren because that is my, growth of life. And I become young again with them, I used to always tell them I'm going to be a hip grandma. Right. Not the last few years, but when they came, when they started growing, I used to go to movies with them, go for drives with them, go for, whatever. And they loved spending weekends with me. We would dance at, TV shows and things like that. So, yeah, so that is something you look forward to, the health of your family. Your family is happy, healthy. That also makes you very rewarded that you've done something correct, in their lives.
But you want to enjoy your family as much as you can, right?
Yeah, of course. That's the most biggest enjoyment is your happy and safe and healthy family.
Yeah.
The first thing I wanted to tell you was that Farhan should open a Zumba class.
Sounds good.
Yeah, find an instructor and sort of get everybody together once a week or once a couple of weeks, and we all get together and it doesn't matter how we move in different directions, but at least our body is moving.
That's so great.
Right?
Love it.
KCA Zumba class, yeah.
Yeah, I used to go to Zumba classes with Faryal. It was so good, like all Indian songs, and we really enjoyed it. But lately I can't, I'm unable to do that.
But it's okay. You can even sit in your chair. For those of us who cannot stand, you can still sit and you can still do the movements. It's still important.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. So that's my suggestion. Anwar. Farhan.
Sounds good.
Farhan, you're going to be at the front of the class. Just
looks like
FYI.
it.
You better bring your A game. You better bring your A game for the Zumba class.
Yeah, please
Great.
note it down. Yeah. Anyway, thank you guys for listening to my gibberish, but
not gibberish. Thanks for your input, Mom. Is there anybody else who'd like to answer one of those two questions? Farhan, you haven't chimed in. Why is aging important in a healthy way, and what's most rewarding as you get older?
Yeah, and the key thing is, as everybody has mentioned, that you want to be fit and be able to participate in your grandkids' lives as you grow older. I think that's the biggest thing, right? And as Adnan mentioned, you don't want to be a burden on anyone, right? Because a lot of people, as you've seen, as they age, there's neglect of the body, and then what happens is they stop being active, stop moving, and in return what happens is you become chair bound or wheelchair bound, and then that becomes stressful not only to yourself but to others around you as well. And that's one thing that and that's the key thing, right? So being active, but the lifestyle we currently live here in this part of the world, it's challenging to find the time to look after yourself. Even if you want to eat healthy, it's expensive. So everything around us makes it very challenging and difficult for us to do that. But to answer your question, it's to age gracefully, to be able to be there for the family and the people you love around. That's what I'd say. Yep. And you are serious. You are serious when you say you test us, right? So we better to pay attention now.
You gotta pay attention. Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum, Faryal. Farhan ki.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. So nice to hear your voice.
Yeah. Faryal, to your question to answer. First thing, I think personally, I would feel like Farida Babi said and Mariam, ke panke gracefully to be able to enjoy our grandchildren and all. That would be the main thing. However, I think that comes after much later age. But previously, when we are 40s or so, if we really focus on our diets, then that would make a drastic change in our future lives.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
However, that doesn't happen with everybody because of life, how fast it is, how it used to be, and how it is now.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
But I'd like to think that even if you're in your 60s or 70s, it's never too late to still develop good habits and start now, because let me tell you, it takes 24 to 48 hours to change how your cell works. Okay, just keep that in mind. 48 hours and you can change your cells for the worse or for the better. But we have to be consistent, and it's a lifestyle thing. It's not that you're going to eat, healthy things tomorrow and then you do all the wrong stuff the rest of the week. The other thing is that whatever we're eating is actually influencing the genes in our bodies. And those genes either turn on disease or they turn off disease. So I'll talk about that a bit more in the future, maybe, presentations. But we have to appreciate that today, what we know about our genes isn't that whatever we inherited from mom and dad, it's set in stone. It's not. We can actually influence how our genes express themselves based on what we put in our body and how we live our life and how much sunshine we're getting, how we deal with stress, if we're getting good quality sleep, if we have good relationships, how much are we laughing? Okay, seriously, all of these things are important. So I thank you all for, giving your input, and, we can continue, of course, with more comments and questions as we go on. I'm just going to request again, if everyone can turn off their mics, and I'll just go back to the presentation and we will continue from this point. So thank you. I'm going to also just remove myself here. Okay, so let me go back where we were. I hope everybody can see the slide, yes? Farhan, we're good to go?
Yes,
I'm
yes,
going to continue.
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you. So as I asked the question, why is healthy aging important? I wanted to get your perspectives on it. Of course, I'm going to indicate a few things that I think are important about healthy aging. As I mentioned before, when we talk about aging, too often the focus is around face creams, Botox parties. Have you guys heard of this? People get together and it's called a Botox party, and a doctor comes and he puts Botox injections into everybody's faces and they have a party. But let me remind people, the word Botox comes from the word botulinum toxin. It is a bacteria that's a very, very, dreadful, treacherous bacteria. The word toxin is right there, Botox. So although they have somehow, manipulated this thing so that when they inject it into your wrinkles, you basically have no wrinkles, no lines, and in many cases, absolutely no facial expression. I mean, who wants to go around with not being able to smile or frown? I don't know, but people are doing it, right? And then fillers and hair implants. And so there's too much focus on the cosmetic side. And I'm not saying people shouldn't invest in enhancing their outwardly features if they want to. Absolutely, go for it. But there are many things you can do naturally while looking in from the inside out to enhance also the way your body and your skin and your cells work. We want to age gracefully so that we can maximize quality of life. There's nothing worse than going into your 80s, 90s, and you can't do anything. You can't get up, you can't walk around, you can't enjoy your family. Many people I've spoken to have said they would rather live up to the age of 60, but live a full life, right? Where they're able to perform and function and be productive and do what they want to do. One of the most important things is we want to prevent future diseases. So I think a lot of us, unfortunately, and it may not have been intentional, but I think it was from the feedback, it sounded like everybody's accepted that they're going to be sicker as they get older. And that's why they don't want to be a burden, maybe not. But I just want to mention, I know some of us are already in our golden years and already have certain conditions, but with the younger crowd, certainly you can prevent. There's lots you can do to prevent future illnesses. We want to maximize productivity and we want to contribute to our loved ones and society at large for as long as possible. Of course, we want to reduce burden on healthcare, not just on each other and on our families, but let's look at the burden on the healthcare system when the healthcare system has to be treating people with chronic diseases. And this is where naturopathic medicine really shines, because we can help people to reverse chronic disease, which takes the burden off the healthcare. And of course, fulfill goals and dreams. Many people start living life at retirement, and you want to be able to travel and see the world and have new experiences and enjoy them, right? There's nothing worse than booking a trip somewhere and then being sick the whole time, or not feeling like you can do things because you're in aches and pains, or you're diabetic and something's gone wrong with your diabetes. So we want to be able to do all of these things and at the same time look vibrant and feel great. I'm sure everybody agrees with this. So, when we talk about my approach, I just want to discuss firstly the conventional medical approach, which is what most of us are used to. It's the mainstream Western medicine. It is designed to basically prescribe drugs to treat symptoms. So it's a Band-Aid type of, unfortunately, system, and in some cases it works, but in many cases, just because you have gotten rid of a symptom doesn't mean that you've gotten rid of the actual underlying cause. So treating symptoms is what is largely the conventional medical approach, or surgery, or more drugs for side effects of the drugs that you're already taking. Definitely conventional medicine has its place. I am not knocking conventional medicine. I think that they have made very, very incredible advancements in medicines when it comes to surgeries and so on. But I think when we talk about chronic diseases that are preventable, lifestyle, diet, these are the things that should be focused on. And we all know that prescription drugs have undesired side effects. So then you end up having more drugs to deal with the downward spiral of masking disease with, again, more prescription drugs. So it's just a vicious cycle. The physician's role is largely to manage drugs, not the patient's health. Okay, I wonder what you think about that. The naturopathic approach, which is where I come from, is that we address the root cause of dis-ease. You'll see the word disease. I've broken it down into dis-ease, which means you are not at ease, right? And so we are not masking symptoms. We're actually trying to get to the root cause. In many cases, we are accelerating or supporting the body's ability to heal itself. We treat the body at the microscopic cellular and biochemical levels, and we use cutting-edge tests and natural therapies and medicines to improve health. Health, by the way, is not just physical. It's mental and emotional also. We do use these therapies and tests and medicines to optimize performance and to increase the quality of life for the patient. So you can see there's a very, very stark contrast between the two approaches. And I think it's a fair statement to say that, today, more and more people are shifting towards the naturopathic approach because it just makes more sense. So I'm going to get into the top 10 strategies from a naturopathic point of view when we talk about aging and chasing this fountain of youth, okay? And some of these strategies may seem, very, very sort of trivial, but they're so important. And I'd like each of you to think about what out of these 10 can you start doing right away. So number one, go to bed, okay? And this is a picture of my mom's cute little cat. Her name is Mika, and she's an expert in sleeping. Sometimes when I would look at her, I would think, oh my goodness, I wish I could sleep like that. She's such a little cutie pie. So going to bed may seem so trivial, but it's so important. Sleep, unfortunately, in our society today is undervalued, okay? And it is really something that is going to be a game changer, because when we're sleeping, there's so much repair and healing that's taking place. All of our hormones are being replenished. And believe it or not, there's a lot going on with the brain during sleep. We are literally rebooting our computers, which is our brain, while we're sleeping. So if we're not getting enough sleep, we are aging pretty quickly because we're not able to heal and repair. Now, I don't know if any of you know this movie. It just came out on Netflix. I just watched it with my husband 2 days ago, called Awake. If you have Netflix and if you can watch this movie, Awake, it is incredible. What happens if you don't sleep? What happens to the body? And the movie basically is about something going wrong in the world where people just cannot sleep anymore. Nobody can sleep. And it goes through the scary things that can go on with hallucinations, with people getting violent and aggressive. All kinds of things can go wrong if you haven't slept, because you cannot think, you cannot function, you cannot perform. It's a very interesting movie. So do watch it, and you'll hopefully appreciate some of what we're talking about today. Now, we have something called a circadian rhythm, okay? All of us, all living beings, animals, even plants. We work with the rhythm of the earth as the planet is revolving and rotating on its axis. And a circadian rhythm is basically a light day or a night, sort of a darkness and a day cycle. So it's when we're sleeping, which should be during the dark hours when there's no light, and when we should be awake, which is during the sunlight hours. And every single species on this planet, all animals know that when the sun goes down and it starts to get dark, it's time to sleep. Human beings are the only ones who've turned that completely upside down. And we are awake at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, because we have all this artificial light. We have light from our digital devices. And this is messing up with the way our bodies are meant to work. Certain things are supposed to be happening at night during deep sleep, and certain things during the day. So I don't think there's a single animal, unless they're nocturnal, like there isn't a bird out there or a bee out there that says, oh yeah, sun is up, it's okay, I'm just gonna sleep in today till noon. Sun comes up, they get up, they know it's time to wake up, right? And some of us are not morning people. I'm not a morning person, but I do my best to be able to sleep during the darkness hours, as much as possible. So as I said, there's lots of repair and healing happening during sleep. Our hormones are getting balanced, and the brain in particular, this is so important, because during sleep, throughout the day, we accumulate what are called proteins in our brain. If those proteins are not cleared out, this is what leads to things like neurological diseases such as Alzheimer's, dementia, even Parkinson's. Because remember, the brain is the command center, and all of our whole nervous system stems from the brain and the spinal cord to the rest of the body. So these proteins need to be cleared out. If these proteins and toxins are not cleared, then they start damaging the brain matter. The other thing that happens during sleep is that the brain de-inflames. So basically, while we've gone through all the stresses of the day, there could be some inflammation. Slowly, that inflammation comes down during sleep. It's a repair mechanism. We have certain brain cells that are specific for immunity, to help to improve and repair our nerves and create new neurons in our brain. So any of you who haven't slept even for a night, how do you feel the next day? I know I don't feel good. I feel grumpy. I know that I'm not really a happy person to deal with if I haven't slept well. I certainly can't perform my tasks as well as if I had slept well. And when we need to create new neurons in our brain to create new memories and for learning, it's difficult to do that. And another thing I want to say is that all kinds of studies are showing us now that if you haven't slept for a night or two, you now have insulin resistance that is basically similar to what a diabetic person would be, just from not having a night or two of sleep. Another thing that's important for the brain to do during sleep, believe it or not, is to forget. The brain needs to forget. And dreaming, in my opinion, dreaming is actually a way for the brain to detox. Okay, it's basically the movie playing of everything that's going on, and things that are memories that need to be consolidated are consolidated. All the other trivial things have to be forgotten, because if you can't forget every little small detail of your day, you're going to become overwhelmed. The brain becomes overwhelmed and it's going to shut down. So it needs to forget in order to clear. It's like clearing memory on a computer. You need to clear memory so that your computer works faster and so that you can have new memories coming in and remember things you're learning. Okay, so number one strategy, go to bed and try to get your 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Really important, try to go to bed at the same time each night. And there are many other things around sleep hygiene. I think this is a topic literally on its own, to be honest. Number two, how old are your arteries? Okay, you've never thought about that, I'm sure. I'm sure no one's ever thought, how old are my arteries? Your arteries are like the infrastructure, the highway system of your body. All the blood flows through them, takes nutrients and oxygen, and removes carbon dioxide and so on through the veins, you know, to be reoxygenated. So it is the infrastructure. If you think of a cosmopolitan city, how do things get from one end of the city to the other? If there are blockages in these streets, in these highways, things cannot move, and it can create a lot of havoc. So William Osler, he's a famous physician, he's Canadian actually, in 1894 said, a man is only as old as his arteries, which is quite profound, right? So the arteries, especially the walls of the arteries, they are like elastic bands. They're very elastic. And so, you know, as you're going through your days and your weeks and your months and your years, those artery walls expand and they dilate to accommodate for changes in blood pressure. If you're excited, if you're upset, if you're sad, if you're really happy, if you're feeling exhilarated, it has to expand and dilate. But over time, the arteries stiffen, they lose elasticity, they thicken, the blood flow thickens, and you can't get enough blood flowing. So you end up with high blood pressure. You also end up with plaques forming, high cholesterol, and also high insulin. If you're starting to get insulin resistance, you're going to start creating inflammation in the body. So we are able to absolutely reverse what we call our vascular age. This is the age of your highways and your streets inside your body. How do we do that? Here are some examples. Foods such as walnuts, spinach, celery, berries, omega-3 foods, so fatty fish, olives, avocados, pomegranate. Today, my husband just made from pomegranates. We blended the pomegranate seeds and the fruits and a little bit of water, and we had a pomegranate juice, fresh, right? Green tea, and then coenzyme Q10, which I'll talk about a little bit later. It is a supplement. So obviously, eating less foods that come from animals, less meat products and poultry and things like that, and eating more plant-based is best. There are many studies showing that people who are scheduled for bypass surgeries who have 40%, 50%, 80% blockages in their arteries. When they go on a strict plant-based diet, they reverse the blockage and they no longer need the surgery. Okay, it's amazing. So these are some examples. Of course, movement is critical, right? You need to move your body, to move the blood, to move the oxygen, to get things going. And our muscles, when they contract, they help those arteries to push things along. And there are lots of tests now. They're very novel, kind of high-end tests and ultrasounds that can actually check by placing certain instruments on your carotid arteries, which is near your neck, can check how old are your arteries. So I would say, please think about this, because if you have no infrastructure, you're not getting nutrients and you're not getting rid of things that should be flowing out, you know, to get out of your body. Number 3, eat the rainbow. This is pretty self-explanatory. So I hope this answers part of the question, Mariam, that you asked about, well, what can we eat? So I'm obviously a big advocate of making sure that your diet is mostly plant-based. I'm not saying you cannot have animal meats and products, and of course, fish is good, but you should make sure that 50% of your plate every time you eat has vegetables and, you know, all kinds of different colors of these rainbow. It's called eating the rainbow. Now, there are some foods that I believe are called superfoods, and I think that I included what I feel is most important for us. There are many more, but you know, if we could have gone on and on. So extra virgin olive oil, really important because it's omega-3. It's a good quality. We need healthy fats in our system for our brains, for our joints. It's lubrication for our joints. And we need it for our skin. But what's been shown in recent research is that olive oil is actually something that helps with increasing lifespan. So it's something that we can incorporate to help with longevity, right? Increasing health span and lifespan. Blueberries and grapes, very important. You'll see they're in that rainbow there. These purple, blue, dark colored berries, really important because they're very high in antioxidants, which I spoke about before, which is what helps to prevent that damage to cells and DNA from oxidation. Green leafies, any of your green leafies, spinach, bok choy, you know, arugula, salads, lettuces, all of these things are very important for all of the minerals and folate and magnesium and also fiber. So, I mean, all of these things give us a lot of fiber, which helps us to be regular and move things along. Broccoli, very important because it's anti-cancer, believe it or not. And in particular, the sprouts. If any of you have heard of broccoli sprouts, these are really powerful for anti-cancer properties. But broccoli and cauliflower too are important for women's health because they help to bind to some of the excess hormone in our system and get it out of the system. And then some other ones are avocados, walnuts, you know, because they're healthy fats and protein. Shiitake mushrooms. I don't know if any of you have ever had mushrooms. The shiitake in particular comes from a family of what I call medicinal mushrooms. There are many. This in particular is really important, again, because of its anti-cancer properties, but also because it's very high in vitamin D. And vitamin D is critical for many things when we talk about health. Garlic is nature's antifungal and antibiotic. So the more garlic that you can eat, the better. And it's really good for lowering cholesterol. Tomatoes have a lot of wonderful properties, but I wrote this in here because in particular for men, it has something called lycopene. Lycopene is the active ingredient that helps with any prostate issues, and in particular for preventing prostate cancer. Usually the tomatoes have to be cooked. Sweet potatoes are another very, very good superfood. They are also very good in terms of just maintaining blood sugar levels, and they also have anti-cancer properties. Cinnamon and turmeric are two of my favorite spices that I use all the time, not just in food and in cooking, but I actually have them in tea, in golden milk, which I shared a couple of presentations ago. So they are powerful for the health of your liver, for your cells, for preventing all kinds of illnesses. And turmeric in particular is showing promise now for brain health, for people who are suffering from things like Alzheimer's. And then I've got some other things here like wild salmon, grass-fed beef. For those of us who are going to eat these things, please make sure that it is wild salmon, not farm raised, that it is grass-fed beef, not corn-fed beef, that it's, you know, pasture raised, organic. They haven't been injected with antibiotics and hormones. Bone broth is another fabulous anti-aging food because it contains all these beautiful amino acids and other nutrients. It creates collagen. Collagen is what makes up all of our connective tissue. And I think a lot of us probably, we grew up drinking bone broth every time my mom would cook something where she was going to make something with meat, and she would give us the soup to drink before making the actual meal. And we didn't realize then how amazing it was for our health. So this is making a comeback. I use bone broth a lot for people who have skin conditions like psoriasis, eczema, and so on. And then, thank God, my favorite, dark chocolate, is on this list because dark chocolate is very high in antioxidants. As long as you're eating a good quality dark chocolate that is high in cocoa solids, so like 70% cocoa solids or above. So these are some of the foods. There are many others, but if we can focus on a few of these on this list that you can incorporate into your diet every week, I think that this would be a huge step in the right direction in terms of what to eat as opposed to what not to eat. The fourth strategy is intermittent fasting. So this is about basically not eating anything for number of hours and reducing your eating window to about 8 hours. It's a bit different from Ramadan fasting in that you're allowed to drink certain kinds of liquids. So herbal teas, black coffee, water is fine, water with lemon, but you're not allowed to drink anything that would have calories in it. So you couldn't put sugar in your beverages, for example. You can't have juices. But the idea is that you're not eating anything for 16 hours. Some people, instead of doing the 16-8, they will do 18 hours of not eating and 6 hours of eating. And I know people who've gone as far as 20 or 22 hours. So they really reduce their eating window. And the idea behind this is you're giving the body a chance to clean house. If you're not constantly introducing food into your system, the body actually has an opportunity to do a deeper cleaning, to recycle and repair old cells and to get rid of cells that are behaving badly. And you can really do a deeper cleaning of the body because it's not being bombarded with the task of constantly digesting. So for those of you who were present or may have watched my first presentation we did on the benefits of fasting, I spoke a lot about autophagy. This is the idea of self-eating, where the body basically cleans itself. And the same thing happens here. Again, hormones are balanced. All of our biomarkers like blood sugar levels, insulin, cholesterol, triglycerides, blood pressure, all of these things come down. What's really interesting is that for people who eat one meal a day, one big meal a day, they increase their lifespan by 70%. That's really profound. So the more often you're eating, you're actually shortening your lifespan. And if you're eating foods that are not good for you, then of course we're shortening that lifespan even more. Of course, intermittent fasting, you know, the side benefit is that you will lose some weight, which is always welcome. And we spoke about blood vessels before, about how old are your arteries. Well, intermittent fasting actually helps to keep those blood vessels young. So I would encourage people to try an intermittent fast once a week, and then over time increase it to 2 days a week if you can. And all it means is that you're just not going to eat anything for 16 hours, and then you will eat within an 8-hour window. And I can talk more about that if people have questions. But it's a really powerful way to basically age gracefully, okay? Because you can get rid of toxins that are causing you to age. And then number 5, just move it, right? You guys know that, I'm sure some of you know that song from the 80s or 90s, move it, move it. I think we just need to remember that the body has to move, just like Anwar Uncle said before, very important. You don't have to do anything crazy, but you've just got to make sure that you are not constantly sedentary or lying down or not moving the body. A person's total muscle mass starts to decline after age 25. So imagine, whatever amount of muscle you have after the age of 25, every decade you're losing muscle mass, you're losing muscle mass. By age 80, approximately 40% of your muscle mass is lost. That's almost half of what you had when you were in your 20s. So really important to constantly be doing things that can create muscle, that can keep your muscles active so that you don't lose that muscle mass, because your lean muscle mass is your vitality. Okay, it is your vitality. So obviously when we move, we increase oxygen to all the parts of the body, to the brain, to the tips of our fingers, to all the different internal organs which need it. We increase blood circulation. We end up feeling more energized. We increase lung capacity. The brain is able to create more neurons and prevent neurons from dying. It revitalizes the blood vessels and the lining inside the blood vessels. Moving helps you to boost immunity. If you can move enough to sweat, that's great, because the skin is another way for detoxing. And if you can use weights or yoga in particular, any kind of strength training, it's really important for strong bones and muscle building. So again, it doesn't have to be crazy, spending 2 hours at the gym pumping iron. Absolutely not. It just could be using your own weight to be able to move in certain postures, or using very light weights just to keep the bones strong, because the bones, they respond when there's weight, they get stronger. So I'm just going to talk about a few different ways in our everyday life that we can try to incorporate movement. And I'd really like to know what you guys think about some of these, or if you're doing them already. So for example, when you're vacuuming, you know, is it possible that you could do some lunges while you're vacuuming? You know, just when you're doing housework in itself can be a very good way of exercising, right? Netflix and stretch. So while you're watching a movie, while you're watching the news, can you do a little bit of stretching, forward bends, whatever is comfortable for you, but just some stretching while you're sitting there watching a movie. Brushing your teeth. How about, you know, just doing some sort of wall sits? This is where you just lean against the wall and slide down and hold the posture for a few seconds and then slide back up. Or you could do lunges, you could do squats, you know, dancing I already spoke about, just as a family, having, you know, a few minutes to just kind of enjoy some music. Standing desk. This is a big one for me. And I don't know if any of you noticed, but I'm doing this whole webinar standing up. So I have sort of made up a standing desk here, and I'm talking to you all this whole time while I'm standing, because you're burning calories while you're standing and you're engaging muscles while you're standing. So it's really important. You can even get ankle weights. You can go for walks and put those weights on your ankles. It just gives you a little bit more resistance. And playing, just any kind of play is really great for movement, but you need to be doing something every day to help your body. So we're going to break again. And as we do, I just thought I would put up some humor so that you can enjoy this. And I'm going to then take a little break and we can take some questions and comments. So I hope you enjoyed those. Yeah. So here we go. Any feedback, any questions, any comments on what I've spoken about? I know it's a lot of information. If you didn't understand something, I'm also happy to, re-explain. I don't know if we have any questions in the chat. I can take a quick look. Nothing yet. Okay.
No, we don't have anything in the chat, and we have a question from Inaya. She's got her hand up. Inaya.
Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Walaikum salam.
I just have a question. So regarding salt, would you suggest using Himalayan pink salt instead of the white salt?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, because we stopped using white salt and it was not good for us. So we switched over.
Yeah, the Himalayan pink salt, because it comes from the Himalayas, hopefully, carries with it a lot of minerals as it's coming down the mountain. And so pink salt, or coarse, even sea salt, has a lot more minerals than table salt. Table salt is kind of synthetic. So there's no real nutritional value to it. And with the pink salt, you don't need as much either when you're cooking or eating with it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Faryal, on the part of intermittent fasting, right? How often per week would you say is good for people who have never done it before, just to start off with?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I would say that starting with once a week first is a great way to go, because you first need to kind of get yourself used to it, and you have to plan for it also. So meaning that, to give you an example, when we say intermittent fasting, the 16-8 is the typical formula. So let's say that means you would have your last meal at 7 p.m. in the evening, and you wouldn't eat anything. Again, like I said, you could drink certain beverages as long as there's no calories in them. And then the next morning, 7 a.m., that's 12 hours, you add another 4 hours. So 11 a.m. would be the first time you would eat something. So then your eating window is from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m., which is 8 hours. Okay, which is a long amount of time. I mean, if you think about it, during Ramadan is actually much harder in some ways, because we can't even have beverages. And in some countries where in the summer now the sunset was much later, we were already intermittent fasting in a way. Some of us were fasting for 16, 18 hours anyway, right? But once you get used to it and you get into the rhythm of it, and hopefully when you're intermittent fasting, you're not then eating foods that are unhealthy. You're consciously making a point of eating healthy foods when you break your fast. Then you could go on to do, like I have people who do 5-2, which means they eat normally for 5 days, and 2 days of the week, like on a weekend, they intermittent fast. And they get so good at it that over time they reverse it. They intermittent fast for 5 days, and then they have 2 cheat days. So it's very personal, it's very individual, but I would say at least once a week. It's a huge, very powerful strategy for preventing all kinds of diseases, for helping the body to clean out, for keeping the brain sharp, for losing weight, and it actually increases our lifespan.
And that also relates back to, our religion as well. The Prophet used to fast 2 days a week too. So it's sunnah as well. So both
Absolutely.
benefits.
Correct. Any other questions or comments about anything that I mentioned?
So Hajra's put a good comment here saying, you said so much, and it was the first for her. And it's all about really changing lifestyles.
Yeah, I almost considered that maybe we should have done this as a 2-part presentation, because I didn't want people to feel overwhelmed. But, I think you will probably post it up on YouTube so people can go back and have a watch and listen again if they need to, right?
I will, no, absolutely. And I think, we really appreciate what you're doing, all these, because you've touched on the previous events that you did as well. So, make it relevant too,
Yeah.
right? So this is great. Really appreciate it. And
my pleasure, my pleasure. As long as people are feeling like it's of value. I think Inaya has another question.
Oh, it's not a question. I watched the movie Awake, And
Oh,
it
you
was
did?
really, really interesting. And you can
Yeah.
actually understand how important sleep is, because we sometimes forgo sleep, and we pull all-nighters, or I do because I'm
Mhm.
doing nursing. I sometimes don't sleep. I'm studying all night, and I realize my brain's not consolidating memory, and it's not
Correct.
refreshing, and it can make me become angry or grumpy, and at worst it makes people aggressive and do things that they never thought they would do. So it was a really made me realize how important it is to sleep.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I think that movie was a I mean, I wish it had come out ages ago, but it was so well done in terms of showing, the best of us in humans, what can happen, right? It actually brings out the worst in people when they haven't slept, because you lose all of your critical thinking skills. So imagine doing that over a cumulative period of time. We've all done it as students, as doctors, as shift workers, even during Ramadan. Here, it was very difficult for me to understand because the schedules were completely flipped. It's not like it is in the Western countries, where everything's closed here during the day and then everything's open all night long. And so people aren't sleeping until suhoor, and I don't know if they realize how much the circadian rhythms are being messed up at that point, but that's just how it is. So thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I really think if you can, any of you who can, should watch Awake.
So, Faryal, that brings another important question as well with regard to sleep. So, if you're not getting enough sleep during the night, can you catch up during the day with naps? Is it
You
helpful? Is it
can to a
sane?
point. You can to a point. You can catch up enough to feel rested. Let's put it that way. But to catch up where all the internal organs can do what they needed to do during the night, not so much, right? Because every organ also has its own biological clock. And so when we're sleeping, and especially in the deep stages of sleep, so you have to go into the deep stage. There are 4 stages to sleep, and the deepest stage is the longest to get to, but it lasts the shortest amount of time. So there's a few cycles during sleep, and that's where the repair and the healing is happening. And if you're getting, for anyone who's getting 8 hours of sleep, but it's disrupted, it would be better that you got 5 hours of solid, undisrupted sleep than getting 8 or 9 hours where you're waking up 3 or 4 times in the night.
And this, so people who work shift hours, right? When I'm talking about people who work during the
Night
night,
shifts,
yeah.
yeah.
What would you recommend for them?
Well, first of all, I would, the first thing is I supplement them with melatonin, because obviously their brains aren't producing the melatonin because it's only produced usually, at night. But they can also try their best when they are sleeping to sleep in an extremely dark room, where it's a blackout curtains, no digital devices, nothing plugged in, to help with that melatonin production. And then, it's just around, like, if that's their only choice and they have to work night shifts, then they have to work night shifts. If they can, I always encourage them to see if there's a way that they can be working during the daytime and having some sleep at night, if it's possible. But I know for a lot of people it's not possible. So I just supplement them with things that they need to stay healthy. And as long as they're sleeping, like as long as they're actually sleeping for those 8 hours when they're supposed to sleep, then it's okay. It's not great, but it's okay.
Excellent. We have a question from Nazir Osman. So Nazir, over to you.
Assalamu alaikum, Mary.
Walaikum salam.
Munjo cross chonjo ke eat less, live longer. Don't live to eat, but eat to live. Nebio munjo
Perfect.
chonu ke ninter में जेकी सोना लगे इनजे बारे में करो ख्याल है मां के कोई दी दर्जा जा सोना लगे कोई दी बिया सोना लगे इनजे बारे में करो ख्याल है. Thank you.
Most welcome. Good question. I mean, so I'm not a sleep expert in the sense of dream expert, but I do believe, as I said before, that dreams are a way for our brain to process and to clean out. It's also a way for the brain to detox. It's also a way for the brain to just make sense of what's going on in your life, what needs to stay as a memory and what should leave. Because remember, I said earlier, the brain must forget. I mean, if you had to remember every single detail of your day, it would be impossible. So certain dreams, you know, maybe they mean something, maybe they are giving you a message of some kind. I do believe that sometimes dreams do speak to us, but we all dream. Everybody dreams. Some of us just don't remember our dreams. And if it's a nightmare, yeah, I don't know, you know, it's a personal thing, right? It's a very personal thing. You might have to go to somebody who can interpret why that is. Maybe some of you here might be able to talk about that.
We have a hand raised by Inaya and followed by Salma.
I just have a question about Happy Light. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's a light for people who work night shifts that don't get enough sun. They wake up and before you do anything, you turn on the Happy Light and you look at the light for 20 minutes, and it's like being in the sun, or it reduces the amount of depression you get.
Sure.
And I've seen it at Costco. So just wondering what your thoughts are.
So I'm all about light therapy. In fact, in this presentation, I'll talk a little bit about light therapy also. And I absolutely think that sunshine is so critical. It's also important to set our circadian rhythm. So I don't know about the Happy Light. I would have to look into it, but I'm sure there are many like it that I'm familiar with. And yes, I think absolutely, because you need certain wavelengths of light to come in through the eyes to do certain functions in the brain to get you ready to do stuff that you would need to do during the day. And then you need no light to be able to produce melatonin in darkness so that you can sleep. So it's all connected. It all works in this beautiful mechanical way. And if people need the Happy Light, even in countries like our country, like Canada, where seasonal affective disorder is quite prevalent because of the winters giving us very, very short days, and people can be quite depressed, especially in January. Light therapy is amazing to do that, to keep your serotonin, your brain chemicals, because you're not getting enough light, and you need the sunshine. So I agree.
Thank you so much.
Almost welcome.
Salma, bye. Go ahead.
Assalamualaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Very interesting topic. Very interesting. Oh yeah, I have a question. I have osteoarthritis in both my knees. It has been 10 years already, and it's getting, when I stretch, do stuff, it gets better. But when I don't, really my knees get stiffened, also my calf, everything. And now I work with the building department, so I sit and stand quite a bit, different. So nowadays I stand more, but when I stand for a bit, and as you said, standing is good. So I'm glad. I hope it's working for me as well. But when I stand for long, my knees start hurting and everything gets tightened, and I'm scared to walk. I do walk, but when I walk a little more, I get tired and my knees start hurting.
Yeah. Is there arthritis in your family?
Yeah, my mom has in her osteoarthritis in her whole body, but mine is only knees right now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So do you have a question, or are you sort of wanting me to tell you if the standing is okay?
Yeah, I have a question. If you have any supplement, I'm trying to take. I know fish is good. All the walnuts I take. Avocado is my favorite thing. I just eat like a pear.
Yeah.
All the broccoli, salad, all that's everything. Everything is in my diet. But
so what I would say, certainly, Salma, you need to take omega-3 as a supplement. I mean, I'm glad that you're taking it as the fish and maybe other forms like avocados and hopefully some extra virgin olive oil, coconut oil, all of that. But you need very high amounts of it. So usually when I do my presentations, I don't give out dosages because I need to understand a person's case specifically. But I would say that you need to take it as a supplement. Usually about 3,000 milligrams is what you would need, good quality. Please don't pick up your supplements from pharmaceutical stores and pharmacies and Costco's and stuff. Try your best to get it from a health food store. But for osteoarthritis in particular, there are a few things. I don't know if you've heard of eggshell membrane. You can find it in health food stores. It's being shown to have a lot of promise for osteoarthritis. Also, glucosamine and chondroitin, very important.
I do take that. If I don't, take that one day, I start having pain. I
Yeah,
take
so
those
there you
second
go.
day.
So you notice that makes a difference.
Yes.
Another one is SAMe, SAME. You could look into that. And then I would say the bone broth that I spoke about before. It's really important because all of our connective tissue, all of the stuff between the joints, the bones, the connective tissue, the sinews, the tendons, and even our skin, we need collagen. And collagen is very high in bone broth. And so that is one of the best things to take. You know, it's bone broth for bones and joints, right? So if you can either make it yourself, which can be quite a long process to make a good quality bone broth, but now there are companies that make them and sell them. Certainly, I'm sure you can find them in Canada. And I mean, I drink bone broth myself. So I would recommend, those are the first few things that I would suggest for you.
Okay. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
That's great. Lots of good questions here. So do you want to still go on, Faryal?
Yeah. Are
Okay.
you okay with that?
Yes, please. Let's go on.
Okay, great. I hope everybody's okay if I continue, and I'll share the screen again. Okay, let me just go to where we were. So I think we spoke about moving, and this was our break. I hope you guys liked my jokes. Nobody said if they liked these. So number 6 is youth in a bottle. Okay, this is what we want. We all want that magic pill where we can just take something, it's all formulated, and that's it. We can enjoy feeling young and living young till whenever. You know, is it really possible? So of course, each of us are going to require different things, but you know, the simple answer is yes. There are lots of wonderful natural, what we would call compounds or supplements that you should be taking to help improve your longevity and your vitality. So I've spoken already about omega-3, and it is so important. That's why it's number 1. Everybody should be on an omega-3, including children, and in particular adults, older adults, because our brains are, you know, 2/3 fat, and we need to feed the brain to create those healthy neurons and to improve brain health and cognition. So this is why with the last participant, I said you need to take it as a supplement. Eating it through food is good, but it may not be enough. Vitamin D is another one, really critical nowadays. In particular, so many studies coming out about its importance, especially for COVID recovery and resolution. And so most of the people who unfortunately succumbed to COVID or ended up being hospitalized all had vitamin D deficiency, very low levels of D. And unfortunately, in the Northern Hemisphere, most of us are deficient because we don't get enough sunshine. So if you're not spending 15 minutes a day in sunshine sensibly, then you need to take it as a supplement. And it's also very important for heart health. Vitamin D, whenever I have someone who comes to me who's feeling depressed or anxious, I put them on vitamin D. It's really important for their mood. I spoke a lot about collagen just now, and vitamin C goes along with that because in order to make collagen, you need vitamin C. So of course, we can get a lot of vitamin C from citrus fruits, excuse me. But some of us may need to take it as a supplement. And particularly now with the whole pandemic, this is even more important. Magnesium is also very critical. It is responsible for more than 300 different reactions in our bodies. And it's important for heart health. Anybody who has high blood pressure needs to take magnesium. If you're experiencing, you know, restless legs, if you're experiencing cramping in your calves, in your legs, any muscle cramping or pain, even with menstrual cycles, any cramping pain, magnesium is really important. And I'm sorry, but I have to just take a quick break. I'm just going to mute myself. I just need to quickly get some water.
Go ahead. Go ahead. I know for the rest of you, we are going a little bit over time, but very interesting topic. Those who can stay, I'm sure you guys will appreciate it. So go
Sorry
ahead,
about that.
Faryal, no problem. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's just I drank all my water, so I had to go get some more. And then zinc, I've also spoken about, previously how important it is. It's important also for all the men, for prostate. Zinc is one of the most important things. Probiotics, these are your healthy bacteria that we need in our digestive systems. And then I spoke about the blueberries and the grapes. And why they were important is because in their skin, there's a compound called resveratrol. Resveratrol is really powerful for helping with keeping those telomeres from shortening. I spoke earlier about the shortening of the DNA. So this is where resveratrol comes in, and this is why eating blueberries and grapes is really important. Coenzyme Q10 is another big one because this is specific to the mitochondria. You'll remember that I said the mitochondria are the little things inside our cells that create energy, and coenzyme Q10 helps them to do their job. But anybody who's on statins, cholesterol medications, it is robbing them of coenzyme Q10. So you need to take CoQ10 if you're taking any kind of cholesterol statin medication. Curcumin, I've spoken a lot about. This is the active ingredient in turmeric. So you can get this as a supplement by itself, which is really powerful for anti-aging. Ashwagandha is another Ayurvedic Indian herb. It's actually affectionately called Indian ginseng, because it helps with energy, it helps with brain function, it also helps to increase testosterone for men, and it's just a really powerful, what we call adaptogen. So it helps people to deal with stress in a way that keeps them more resilient. It's one of my favorite herbs to prescribe. And I also prescribe it a lot for people with thyroid issues. And then the last two are kind of up and coming in the research today. So NAD+, there's a picture there of me holding out a bottle of NAD, which I take myself every day. And this is another very powerful compound that is, again, related to the mitochondria. In the clinic where I work in Dubai, we actually do NAD infusions via IV. So you can get an intravenous drip of NAD to feed your mitochondria so they can create more energy and more energy and more energy. So this is a big one. And then metformin. Most of you might be wondering, oh, metformin, what's that? Because that's an anti-diabetic drug. But now research is showing that metformin is actually showing promise for increasing longevity and can potentially help with things like cancer protection. So I'm not saying all the diabetics out there, yay, if you're taking metformin. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there could potentially be another use for metformin for generally healthy people who take low doses of it to increase their lifespan. So the last two are just more new research that people can look into. And then I want to talk about black cumin as a special highlight. Black cumin kalonji. I'm sure everybody today who's here knows what kalonji is. And I am so grateful because I'm in the land where it is made in abundance. It's grown in abundance. And it goes back to the medicine of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, where he said there is healing in black cumin or kalonji for all diseases except death. So while I was on my little vacation this week in the mountains, ended up buying kalonji from one of the markets on the in the street. And I basically eat it in whichever way I can. Has many powerful benefits between lowering cholesterol, improving heart health. It's got anti-cancer properties. It's amazing for just how our cells work on different levels. And I just wanted to quickly showcase the history here. It's called in Arabic Habat al-Baraka, which is the seed of blessing. And we've seen it in many different, religions in the past, all the different books that have come out. It's also used in Ayurvedic medicine. In Greek medicine, it was used to treat headaches, nasal congestion, toothache, intestinal worms. Ibn Sina, who is very famous Muslim physician, basically referred to black cumin. It stimulates the body's energy and helps recovery from fatigue or dispiritedness. And in 1997, at the Cancer Research Laboratory of Hilton Head Island, South Carolina, it was shown that there was a 250% increase in bone marrow production, along with a 50% inhibition in tumor growth with the use of black cumin. So these are just some of the benefits. And what's really amazing is that this is stuff that we've known about as Muslims from Islamic medicine for so long, many centuries. But in case people are still uncertain of its medical benefits, here are some examples of studies that have come out. This one from 2018 showing how it helps with blood pressure. Here's another one, Nigella sativa, which is the Latin name for black cumin, showing how it can help with a wide range of illnesses. Another journal talking about how the Prophet, peace be upon him, recommended certain foods. And this is a review on this as a superfood done in 2018. Another journal showing in 2020, again, prophetic medicine. Could this potentially be something to use during COVID-19? So I just wanted to talk about that specifically because it's a gift we have inherited as part of our tradition. And I really think that everybody should be taking Kalonji. Number 7, just chill, right? Just take it easy. Just like Anwar Uncle said, be carefree. Try not to worry about things. Try not to have too many anxieties. And I know, myself included, this can be difficult. But if we are constantly worrying and stressed out, then we are aging faster. Now, stress isn't all bad. Me standing here in front of you, giving you this presentation, making sure that I had created hopefully a nice and attractive presentation is a bit stressful, but it's a good stress because it challenges me. It keeps my brain sharp. And I'm doing something I enjoy. So there is something called positive stress. When you get a job promotion, when you are getting married, when you're having a baby. I mean, some of these could be negative stresses too, but for the most part, they're positive and they help you to perform better. However, we need to engage in de-stressing techniques, stress reduction techniques daily, to be able to get out of that fight or flight and get into what we call the rest and digest mode. So each of you should be thinking about something that you can do every single day that you enjoy doing, that makes you feel calm and that helps you to feel relaxed and joyful, whether it's reading a book, listening to music, prayer, talking to a friend, going for a walk. Of course, meditation is something I encourage hugely in whichever form you do it. But there are studies showing us now that psychological stress is linked to shorter telomere lengths and more oxidative stress. So the more stress you take on, as I said, the faster you're aging. And there is something called inflammaging. This is a term that's been coined to show how the stress can create inflammation in your body and can lead to aging. So very important to be able to do things that help you de-stress, and movement and exercise is part of that. Number 8, I really recommend everybody invest in themselves to do proper testing. So precision testing, which is something naturopathic doctors are really good at, is looking at the body from a holistic point of view. Please understand that when you're going to get your tests done for blood markers, the reference ranges that conventional doctors use are different from what naturopathic doctors use. So, for example, just let's say for blood sugar levels, HbA1c, some of you may be familiar with, shows how, let's just say how glycosylate, how sugary your blood cells are. If you had a level of 8, 7.5 or 8, your doctor would say, it's fine, we'll just wait and then we'll put you on insulin. For me, that's too high. I want to see a number below 6. Okay, so the reference range is much tighter. Vitamin D is another one. If you tested for vitamin D and you had a level of 30, it's possible the conventional doctor would say to you, oh, your vitamin D levels are amazing. For me, that's deficient. I need to see you above 50. So this is why we want to look at aging gracefully when we're testing as a way to optimize, right? We don't want to just have enough health to get through the day. We want to have amazing health to get through the next decade or 2 or 3. Prevention is always better than cure. So when you're testing for things, you're able to determine where you need to start paying attention before it becomes a problem. And if you invest in some of the advanced functional tests that I do, for example, I do tests where I can look at nutrient deficiencies. I can see which minerals, which vitamins, which amino acids, what things are you missing, or what things do you have too much of? What kind of toxins are there in your body? I can look at your gut health to see whether you've got parasites, yeast, or bad bacteria, or how much inflammation there is in your gut. I also do the DNA tests, which I spoke about earlier, where I can look at your DNA profile and say to you, you've got a 50 or 60% chance of developing diabetes or cancer or osteoporosis. We can actually do this now, which is a tool we didn't have even 10 years ago. So it really helps you to be empowered in taking charge of your own health to do something about it today, instead of waiting until you're diagnosed with diabetes, or you're diagnosed with cancer, or you're diagnosed with osteoporosis. And then hormonal imbalances, big time, because our hormones, as I said, impact so many aspects of our physiology. So if you're low in certain hormones, they can be replenished and they can help you to look better and feel better. So some of the best tests to start with, I would say, if you haven't had blood work done, know what your fasting glucose level is. Know what your HbA1c is, your fasting insulin, because these are the first things to go wrong when there's a lot of inflammation in the body. And right now in COVID, people who have pre-diabetes or diabetes are having worse outcomes. CRP is an inflammatory marker. You can check for that, vitamin D, iron, your thyroid panel, testosterone for men and women, and immune markers. These are at least some of the things that I would say everybody should be looking at once a year. And then we've got just looking at face value, because anti-aging, I can't have a conversation about it without talking about skin, right? So, you know, when we talk about skin, remember that glowing skin starts from the inside out, not from the outside in, which is unfortunately where a lot of our focus is. Our body absorbs 60% of what we put on it. So if you're putting not good stuff on it, it's going to absorb it. If you're putting bad stuff on it, it's going to absorb it. Hydration. How much water are you drinking? How much water in a day are you drinking that is in the form of, you know, water with herbal tea, or just plain water, or with lemon? Very important to ensure that you're staying hydrated, because on your skin, you can see if someone is dehydrated. Sleep and stress also show up on your face and on your skin. So very important to pay attention to those. I mentioned before that sweating is great because the skin is a detox organ as well. And there are many natural treatments that one can do to just maintain and keep themselves looking good from a skin level. I do facial acupuncture for people. It's like a mini facelift without the facelift, I guess. You can have facials, but make sure that they're using organic, natural ingredients. Facial steams, collagen, hyaluronic acid is another. Of course, there are a whole array of treatments people engage in that have lots of chemicals or that can be quite invasive. Again, that's a very personal choice. But just to give you an example of some of the things I do, you know, on a regular basis in my daily self-care routine for skin, I use coconut oil on my face as a makeup remover. I use raw honey with cinnamon or turmeric as a bit of a mask. I've got a picture there of rose water that I just picked up in Taif this week, which is the city of roses here in Saudi Arabia, and it's pure rose water. So I use that as a toner. or witch hazel. There's a picture of me. Whenever my husband cuts pineapple, he always gives me the head of the pineapple, and I rub that all over my face and leave it for a few minutes, and then I wash it off, because there are enzymes in the pineapple that actually get rid of old, dry skin, and it brings youthful skin to the surface. I use essential oils of rose, lavender, or bergamot in my moisturizer. There are many, many different recipes, and maybe we can do a skin talk one day on things that my motto is, if you put it on your face, you should be able to eat it. If you cannot eat it, probably you shouldn't put it on your face. Okay, so mashing up avocado or banana, and making a paste out of it, or turmeric paste with olive oil. I even use coffee grounds. When I finish drinking my coffee that's filtered, I have a jar in my fridge of coffee grounds, and I'll use that as a body scrub sometimes with some olive oil. And then just for eyes, green tea bags to get rid of puffiness or sore eyes, castor oil for eyelashes to help eyelashes just to lengthen a little bit. You have to do these consistently, of course. These are just some tips of what I do as a skincare, face care regimen. And then I did say I was going to talk about light therapy. So Inaya mentioned that, and I'm just going to quickly say that there is a therapy that I'm using in the form of patches. And these patches are placed on specific acupuncture points on the body, and they do a lot of amazing things. My whole family is on these patches, including myself. They are different patches used on different points of the body for pain relief, to reduce inflammation, to support wound healing, for energy and vitality, for more mental clarity, for enhanced sports performance, faster recovery from exercise, improved skin appearance. I'm going to show you a picture of that now. And some of these also basically stimulate our own stem cells. Stem cells are the cells that were there before they became an organ. So this is just an example of somebody in South Africa who started using a specific patch on her face. On day 1, you can see she has a lot of wrinkles. Day 42 rather, and look at her at day 355. It's almost like she completely reversed in her age. So this is the power 1 year later using these patches. And Suzanne Somers has also spoken about these specific patches. Suzanne Somers, as you know, battled cancer, and she uses these same patches that basically harness the power of light onto acupuncture points. So I just wanted to let you guys know about it, because there's so many different therapies available where we don't always have to take a chemical with side effects or go under the knife. Finally, number 10, the last strategy I want to talk about, do what makes you happy. Too often we're too busy worrying about what other people think. We're too busy being influenced by other people's toxicity. You have to basically do what makes you happy. Social connections are very important. So what we're doing today is an example of that. So thank you, Farhan, for spearheading this and for being at the helm of such an important aspect of our health. Hobbies. Please make sure you're spending time doing certain hobbies and just enjoying your creative energy for whatever it is that you like. It's so important. Laughter is super important because it actually improves your immunity, among other things. Pets, right? Pets are, in many cases, our saviors because they are company for us. Just stroking a pet brings down blood pressure. They're so powerful for mental health issues. And so I had to do a little highlight here. These are the pets in our family. This is my brother's dog Lola in Alberta. She's quite a diva. These are my 2 bunnies from Jeddah here in Saudi Arabia, Siflay and Saffron. I have 2 bunnies. And this is Mika, my mom's cat, who is my mom's best friend right now. And they actually, oftentimes we think we save pets from rescue homes, but I think pets actually save us. Creating boundaries is another one. Knowing when to say no, very important, because otherwise you're just pulled in different directions. Carving out time for yourself. Self-care is really important. There's nothing wrong and nothing selfish about saying that you need some time for yourself to do something nice for yourself. Spirituality and prayer are also very important. And what is your ikigai? So ikigai is a Japanese term coming from this book. If you haven't read it, read it. It's a really quick read. And it just looks at people who live in what are called blue zones. So there are 5 blue zones. I think California is one of them. And then there's 2, I think, in Italy, and there's 1 in Japan, Okinawa, where people are living past the age of 100. And this book these authors went to speak to them to ask them what their secrets were, because they were all very healthy, independent, active centenarians. And so all of them ended up collectively, basically the conclusion was that all of them have found some kind of meaning and purpose. Ikigai means meaning and purpose. What is your meaning and purpose in life that brings you happiness? Very important. So as we conclude the presentation, I hope that all of you can find, 3 or 4 things that you can start doing right away to ensure that you're able to enjoy a longer, healthier, happier life full of vitality and more possibilities. The way to get started is to quit talking and to begin doing. So I'm going to quit talking and I'm going to say thank you so much. This is how you can reach me. And I'll just leave you with this image of these 2 women who are exactly the same age. Which life are you designing? Okay, people who are the same age, what is it that you visualize in your golden years?
Thank you, Faryal.
Most welcome. I know it was a long presentation, but I hope it was worth the stay.
We enjoyed it. Thank you.
Faryal, this was really good. Yeah, thank you very much. We've got a question in the chat in terms, especially on the Kalonji. I have a question too on the same. I mean, what would the doses be and how often would you take that?
So the Kalonji, I take half a teaspoon. I just use the actual seeds. You can
Okay,
get
what if you're
Kalonji.
doing oil? Yeah, what if you're doing the
Yeah.
oil
If
itself?
you're doing an oil, yeah. So I would say probably about a teaspoon, like a teaspoon is enough,
Once a day?
everybody's going to be different, right? Because it all depends on how your body responds to it in the beginning. But I do the actual seeds and I just throw them into my hot water when I'm having a herbal tea, or I throw them on top of, like, I make them in smoothies. But I also have a Kalonji ointment. So for aches and pains, it's already in the ointment and I use that. But I would say, when you're starting something new, less is more. Start off with less, see how you tolerate it, and then you can always have a bit more if you want.
Sounds good. Thanks. There's another question as well, that, if somebody's taking blood thinners, tablets for blood pressure tablets, diabetes tablets, garlic tablets, vitamin D and calcium vitamin D, can they also add glucosamine chondroitin? How much can the kidney take, right? So.
Yeah, no, you can certainly add them. I mean, there might be something where you might have to change the timing of when you're taking some of the other meds, but certainly you could add the glucosamine and the chondroitin.
Excellent. Anyone else have a question? Raise your hand as usual, or you can go ahead and ask. But otherwise, I just want to say, this has been an amazing session. I really appreciate you taking the time and spending it with us. It's always, always fantastic to see you, at the same time learning so much from you too.
Yeah, it's only my pleasure. Thank you so much for the platform to share with everyone. And I hope that it's been, of value. But of course, if there's anything that was too much, I take constructive criticism well. So let me know. And I've indicated how people can get in touch with me if they want to ask any questions after the session. And also topics. I did have somebody message me yesterday from the KCA group saying, could I please talk about arthritis, because they are on methotrexate for many years and they're worried about their health. So again, if there are certain topics that people want to hear about, please let Farhan know.
Yes, sounds good.
Just had a question, just a comment. I just want to let you all know that this was very, very informative, Dr. Faryal. I almost felt like I was going through the entire book right now. You know, like you just hit all the topics that I could possibly have imagined on aging gracefully. So thank you, thank you, thank you. This
My
was
pleasure.
very informative.
Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for spending your Sunday afternoon with us. Yeah.
It was wonderful. Thank you.
And I just want to recognize the people from the US that have joined. Amjad, Mariamasi as well. We had my brother who had joined from England as well. So,
Oh, nice.
you know, just wanted to recognize everyone there as well. So, you know, again, I want to respect everyone's time. I know we've gone over, but it was an amazing session, and you really kept us engaged at the same time and well informed too. So I appreciate it, Dr. Faryal, and I will say thank you very much to everyone who
Thank
attended
you.
as well. Really appreciate it. If you do have questions and we haven't gotten to them here, you know, we've got the group chat there, or send the message to me and I will make sure that she finds out, she gets your comments or questions. Well, thank you very much. I want to appreciate everybody who's taken their time. I will now stop the recording.